Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody. This is Sheri Grunska. It looks like it's having a hard time. Am I live on your end? Okay.
Not yet. It takes me a couple minutes.
Okay.
There we go.
Hi, everybody. This is Sheri Grunska with Pro Barn Management, and welcome to our live Q&A Horse Barn Management show. Okay. For the last 2 months, I've been calling it a webinar, and I don't like that name. I don't like the name webinar. Webinar. So we're going to call it a Horse Barn Management Show every Monday evening. So I hope it's okay. Hope you don't mind it, but we're doing it. Anyways, thank you for joining us. And tonight we have another open Monday. Pick any topic you want. You can go ahead and email me. And tell me where you're from. If you have questions, I have a lot of questions here I'm going to answer. And I was really excited because I got some questions that I've never been asked before in all these years of doing this, of consulting with barns. They were really kind of unique questions, so we're going to talk about them. And you can ask your questions right on the website here on Facebook. You can text me at 920-205-7518. And my friend Tricia is here, and that's her hand. She is getting all the questions for me because they don't really show up on my computer as I'm talking, looking at the camera. So anyways, we're going to dive right in. If you have a question or something you want to talk about, just let me know, and we're going to get going. Okay, this was the first question I got. And so I'm going to break it down. It says, hi there, you are definitely helping a lot of barn owners. And I thought that was so nice, so thank you. I have a question on board payments. How do you handle a missing check or people who put cash in the deposit box? So what I do is we have a locked box at our barn, and it's in a private room. No one's allowed to go in there. The public's not allowed to go in there. And it's kind of like a locked mailbox. And that's where everyone puts their board payments. But I have one person, and I've always had at least one person through the years who pays cash. So I have a situation where when they're going to pay cash, and I know they are, I want them to text me right away, and I usually kind of go get it out pretty quickly. We've never had a problem with any money missing, but still, with cash, it's a little bit different. So I have them text me right away. Now, the situation with this is this person says she has one person who I tell my boarders to let me know when they put cash in so I can pull it out right away. But most of my cash payers don't let me know. And what if it gets lost with the cash? There's really no paper trail. Okay, so this is a situation where you're going to have to kind of toughen up and just spit it out and say, if you're going to pay cash, you need to let me know. If the money gets lost, then you will have to pay me again. You know, it's their responsibility. It's their responsibility if the money gets lost. So I would also have that in your boarding contract. And we're going to talk a lot about boarding contracts tonight because we got some really good questions on that. But I'd have it somewhere written in there that the horse owner takes full responsibility for paying cash in the box. And I've never had money missing, but you don't want it to get to be where there's a game where someone says they paid or they didn't pay, and back and forth. You're just going to have to toughen up and say this is how it has to be done. And they are responsible if the money gets lost. And I hope it never happens to you. But just, you got to cover all the bases and have it in your contract. Also, I have one boarder. This is also part of the same question. Also, I have one boarder who is always late or bouncing checks. How do you handle that? Okay, first of all, if you have a boarder that's always late, you're going to have to toughen up as the barn owner. It's a business. So I charge a late fee. I charge 5%, and you need to charge a late fee. And you just tell them if it's late, whatever your cutoff day is. I have a 5-day grace, so my board is due on the 1st. They have till the 5th to pay. And if it's not paid by the 5th, then anything the 6th or after, 5% is added on, and it accumulates. So what I would do is go to your attorney when you're writing up your boarding contract, find out what you can do for your state, because every state is different. Make sure you have it written legally correct, and then you have to, this is the hardest part, is you have to enforce it. So it doesn't do anyone good, it doesn't do you any good if you don't enforce the late fee, because they'll continue on. And you have to just, it's hard sometimes when it's coming out of your mouth, but you have to just say, please add on the 5%. What I do when someone is late is I just say, just a reminder, you're late with the board. Please bring it tomorrow, and I give them the amount that's extra, the 5%. I actually figure it out for them and put it on there and say, oh, you owe another, 20 something dollars or whatever, and I put that in the text and I just say thank you. And usually if a person's late once and they get charged, they're not late again, because they don't want to be charged that late fee. So it's really super important. You got to enforce it, and usually if you do it a few times, people get the idea and it just doesn't happen again. You know what, I think I have a question here too. Let me see here.
I have another one related to cash.
Okay, I'm going to put that right there.
Sure.
What's the cash one?
What if the boarder says he paid more than what was actually paid in cash?
Okay, so he gave you a lump sum of money and you counted it, and then he's saying he paid more than what he gave you?
I'm assuming that is correct, yes.
Oh my gosh, that's just crazy. Honestly, it just sounds like some games are going on here. I'm not there, so I don't know. But that's just crazy. I don't know how much more they said, but I would just nip all this right away. I would make it a rule they have to have the exact amount of money. There, no more overpaying, okay? Just pay what they owe and put it in a sealed envelope with their name on it. So no cash just hanging in the box, a sealed envelope with their name on it, and tell them no paying extra. Excuse me. Just pay the amount, and and if they can't do that, then they're going to have to write a check, because this gets nuts and it gets crazy if all of a sudden you have someone trying to say this, and if it's cash, now you don't know who's saying what. And you know what? Life's too short. Life's too short. Don't do it. So if they can't pay the exact amount, then have them write a check. And I'll be honest with you, if that's even going to be an issue, then they need to find a different barn. I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound rude, but it gets almost crazy. And this is when I talk about simplifying your job, it's all these little things that make the job easier or harder. And it really just shouldn't be that difficult. So I have one person who pays me like 6 months in advance, and she writes me a check, and then I keep track of it, and it's all in QuickBooks, and I let her know how much every month her credit is. But it's not cash. She gives me a check, and then when she gets down to that last month, then I let her know how much is left over and what she's going to do, and it works out great. And I do that. I don't do it a lot, but I have done it with one person for years, and that's how she likes to do it, and it works out fine. But with cash, if they're going to put cash in a box, then what they should do is write on the envelope on the outside how much is there. They need to text you that they got cash there, and they need to have it written on the envelope what is there. Everything right in order, so that you're covering all the bases, because I don't want to say I don't know what this person's thinking, but sometimes people seem to be selective in what they remember.
It was only $10 over.
Okay, but did you know it was $10 over, or did she know?
She didn't say.
Okay, so that's the thing. I would, from now on, I would say have them write down how much is in the amount of cash on the envelope. What's the amount? And then you count it right away and make sure it's correct, exactly what's on the envelope, and see if that helps. you want to trust people, but sometimes it just gets kind of goofy. And so just to cover all bases, that's what I would do. It seems to simplify it. Also, the question, since we're talking about payments, do you pay the stop payment, or is it their responsibility if a check, well, let's see. Also, I have one boarder who is always late or bouncing checks. How do you handle that? And what about a stop payment, or is it their responsibility? Okay, well, first of all, if they're bouncing checks, they still owe the late fee. They still owe the late fee. And you're just going to have to nip that. They still owe the late fee. And it says here, no check this month, even though she told me she put it in there. If there's no check in there and you don't have it, if you don't have it in your hand, you can't cash it, and it's a check, then there's still a late fee. I don't know if this person's playing a game with you. Kind of sounds a little crazy.
It sounds a little crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a little odd because usually that's not it doesn't happen. Now, it says here, do you pay the stop payment, or is it their responsibility? Well, I don't know why you would have a stop payment, but I did have to pay a stop payment once on a check here because I lost it. So we had a boarder who had paid years ago, like 10 years ago, and I always tell people they never hand me the money, ever. I tell them to put it in the box because I got so much on my mind, and I'm probably almost positive I'm going to wash it in the laundry. So I tell them never to hand me money, but before that, someone had handed me a check, and I lost it. And it wasn't their fault. I mean, I did lose it. And I remember them handing me the check. So I paid for the stop payment. So I guess that's where I would pay. But there really shouldn't be a reason why they would pay for the stop payment that I can't think of.
You mean you pay for it?
I pay for it because I lost the check.
No, but in a normal situation, the barn owner wouldn't pay anything.
No.
That would be the
No.
owner's responsibility.
Yeah, it would be anytime there's a bounce check, anytime there's anything like that, the boarder pays it. That is not the barn owner's responsibility at all. But when I lost the check, I had to pay the stop payment, and it was kind of expensive. So, okay, and I guess the thing is, if it's something with someone that's a pattern, that's something you want to take into consideration, because if it's something they keep doing over and over, then you know it's a history. You need to nip it, and I don't know how they're going to take it, but it's not worth the headache. It should be simple. You just pay your board. It's done, you know. So I'm not sure on that, except that if it's too much board for them or they're boarding with you, then maybe they need to look for a place that's less expensive. That's kind of the bottom line on that, because you still need to get paid. You have a business. You have bills to pay. So that's kind of straightforward on that. Any questions on that?
Not on that, but the one you gave me on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What suggestions do you have for working with a younger family member who contributes lots in the way of business but struggles with rules set out by owner parents?
Okay.
I don't understand.
Say that again. Yeah,
Okay.
say that one more time.
What suggestions do you have
Yeah.
for working with a younger family member
Uh-huh.
who contributes lots in the way of business but struggles with rules set out by owner parents?
Oh, okay. So you have like someone in your family that maybe isn't following the rules.
That's what I think I'm hearing.
Yeah. So you are the barn owner, barn manager, and you have someone in your family who is part of the business, but they are not following the rules. You know, that's a really good question. I hope I have it right. Let me know if it's right. So I'll tell you, I'll give you a little history. My kids are now 21 and 23. And so they grew up. We built the business, and they were really young, and they grew up in the barn. And I was probably more strict with them about stuff in the barn. I wanted to make sure that they understood that they weren't entitled to anything, and that they were not above the rules, because I felt that I just felt it looked better professionally for them to have to follow the same rules everybody else did. And sometimes they didn't like that because they live here. So, but I made them follow the rules, and I've had my one daughter's worked for me a little bit here and there, my younger daughter, and she does a great job. I didn't have a problem with her working for me. But I think it depends on the age. They go through they're girls. They go through the teenage age, emotional age, 16, 17, when they want to be adult age. And sometimes they don't want to follow the rules. They had to follow the rules. Sometimes it meant they were trying to sneak and not wear a helmet because they weren't 18. And I made them put a helmet on just like all the other kids in the barn. And so I hope that's I hope I'm answering your question, but I was kind of strict with my kids because I knew that I had a business and people were watching, and it was important for them to be, it had to be equal, and I wanted them to learn this is how a business works. So that's how I did it. I hope I answered your question correctly, because I'm not sure of the whole situation, but I'm thinking that's kind of what you're talking about.
I think so.
So do you have another one?
I do.
Okay.
We are sending a 30-day notice to a boarder to move his horse. What do you recommend if the person does not leave or becomes ugly with you about moving his or her horse?
Okay, so I hope you have this in your boarding contract, and it has happened. I've had to ask people to leave and give a 30-day notice, and it is never a smooth transition. Usually, a lot of times they leave earlier because they're angry, and so they get out, and while they're there, they can make things a little bit dramatic. And I have in my contract now, I have the ability, and I just changed this like 4 years ago, I have now that I can actually ask someone to leave in 7 days if I have to, due to these kind of situations. And I can say you have to leave within 7 days if it gets that bad. But for the most part, most of the time I've given a 30-day notice to someone, they've actually left before the 30 days because they wanted to leave and get to their new barn. I think they felt awkward at the barn knowing they'd been asked to leave. So in most cases, sorry, I always have one of those most cases, they end up leaving early. But if they're going to stay, you try to work through it. It's not easy, and it's hard when you see them at the barn because it's awkward. There's tenseness there. Unless they start off causing problems, you're going to just have to bite the bullet and deal with it. But I would make sure you have it in your contract. I would also make sure you have something in there that if things, get a little bit crazy, you have the right to ask someone to leave within 7 days. It takes the pressure off, and that was one of the best things we did. And we just did that like 4 years ago after we had a situation happen. And I said, I'm not doing that again. So I had my attorney write it up and make it so that I could ask someone to leave in 7 days if I had to. And it's worked out well. Okay. Those are great questions. Okay, so I have so many questions here. I'm trying to think of where to start. I guess we were kind of talking about the boarding contract, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that right now before I go on to these other questions. It says, thank you so much. This was someone wrote me this. Thank you so much for answering my questions. Was able to listen to this live while cleaning the barn this morning, which is so cool. I have a boarding contract, but seems like every boarder brings something different to the table, so I have to keep changing it. Can you recommend the best contract to use? Thank you again. Okay, first of all, you should never have to change your boarding contract because of the different people at your stable. You should have one boarding contract, and it should be what you want for your stable, and people either need to agree to it and sign it, or they need to go to a different stable. What you're doing is you're trying to please everybody, and you can't do that. And especially with the boarding contract, I've never heard of anyone doing that, but have one boarding contract with what you want for your stable, and the right people will come. Don't be changing everything for everybody, because you'll drive yourself nuts and it's exhausting and you can't please everybody. And eventually a lot of those people leave. And then you have new people come in, and then what do they want? So the best thing for a boarding contract, so I'll tell you, when we first, as far as recommending a boarding contract, when we first opened, I didn't have one. I looked online, I found one. I think I paid like $15 for it. Well, then years later, I took it to my attorney and I had him look at it, and he said, wow, this contract isn't even valid for the state of Wisconsin. I had a contract that wasn't even valid. And so he rewrote my boarding contract. And so you can get sample contracts anywhere. But if you want to see my contract, it's right in my book. And this is my book, A Step-by-Step Guide to Starting and Running a successful, that's a hard word, successful horse boarding business. And this has my boarding contract in it. And I want to say first offhand, I don't want you to copy it exactly, because you have to do what's best for your barn, and you have to make sure it's legal for your state. This is what I use for my barn, but there's a lot of good paragraphs in there of different things that you want to think about when you have a boarding stable and you have to have a contract. You can find them out there too, and you can do the same thing. If you buy my book, we talk about all the different parts of a boarding contract and why you want to have some of them, like having the area where you talk about giving a 30-day notice or a 7-day notice or a late fee, or where they are required to have the shots that are needed, farrier, even the paragraph where if their horse is hurt, you have the right to call the vet if they are not around, and you have the right to pressure them to call a vet if they don't want to. So, for example, I had this happen a couple times throughout the years where a horse was hurt, and the owner didn't want to call the vet because they didn't want to spend the money. And the thing is, I felt it was serious. They were looking at it like, they were looking at it strictly from a financial part of it. But the point was, I had to say, no, we need to call the vet on this. And I had one person that was not happy, but they did it. They didn't like being told to call the vet, but in this situation, it needed to be done because of the situation with this horse was bad. And they just were thinking it would go away. And so you want to have that in there. You want to be able to protect yourself. You want to have a paragraph in there that says that when they sign the contract, they have looked at everything on the property and they feel that it is safe. They like the way it looks, and they feel that everything is shows good quality care for the horse. Sometimes people will bring a horse to a place, they really don't even look at the contract, they just sign it, and they don't look at they're so they're looking at everything around, but they're not really looking. And you know, they get excited about the arena, or they might get excited about the lounge or the pastures, but there's a lot of things they don't see. Even though they're looking at it, they miss right by it. And then all of a sudden, a year later, they'll say, oh, can I see a copy of the boarding contract? And it's usually because they're not happy about something and they want to see what they signed. And usually if someone wants to see the boarding contract, I try to give them all a copy when they come. They sign it and then I make a copy for them. But if they don't have it, I can usually tell if someone is, there's struggles and they're not happy with something, because they'll say, hey, Sheri, can I see a copy of my boarding contract? And then you know right away there's something wrong. It's pretty easy. And usually it's a short time after and they give their notice. And they're looking for something, and it just happens, and that's kind of a red flag of that. But you want to have that kind of stuff in your contract. You can have your contract be as long as you want or as short as you want, but you know, you really want to have it detailed, because you want to make sure you cover all areas. Besides the liability part, it's the part about the care of the horse, it's the part about making the monthly board payment, or having people over, guests come, the rules. I don't have my rules in my boarding contract. I hand it with them, but it does have a thing in there that they will follow the barn rules. The only reason is because the barn rules change. And for you to change your boarding contract with an attorney, it costs money. And so like when I made a change 3 or 4 years ago, it was like $300 to make that change. But that's why I tell people you want to do it right. And you know what? Sometimes people say, well, attorneys are so expensive, but what's more expensive is when you get sued, and it costs you money. So I would say bite the bullet, figure out what you want in your boarding contract, make sure he rewrites it or they rewrite it so that it's written appropriately for your state so you're covered. And you can have whatever you want in it, and it works out really nice. And hopefully you have it for a long time. You don't have to make too many changes. You have a question?
If you increase your board, do you have boarders sign a new contract?
I don't. I never have. But you could. I wouldn't. I guess I wouldn't do it. I would increase the board, but when you increase the board, I would give them a written paper, like you can send them an email, or you give them a paper copy, and you could have a place where they sign it at the bottom of the increase and the date it starts. So like we always give, when we increase the board, it's usually in the fall, and we give a 2-month notice. I like giving everyone a 2-month notice. That way, if they feel like they want to move their horse, they have plenty of time to look for a new place. But I have not had anyone sign it, and I haven't had a problem with it. But if you feel like you want to do it, do it. I wouldn't do it on your contract. I would just have a separate sheet and then have them sign that they understand the board is going up. And then you keep that in their file with their contract and everything else. That's kind of important. And you can do the same thing with your barn rules. You can have them sign it. The thing about people is, and I've seen this over and over, you can give them the barn rules, you can give them the boarding contract, and the reality is they really don't read a lot of it. They just don't. So then all of a sudden something happens, and I'll say, well, it was in the barn rules, and they'll say, oh, I didn't see it, or I didn't read it, and that's what they say. So you have a question?
Do you go over with new clients?
Mm-hmm.
Do you go over point by point the board contract?
I don't. No, because mine is like 6 pages long.
Okay.
It would take a long time. Nope, it's their responsibility to read it. If they don't understand something, they'll ask me, but I don't. And you can, I just don't. I think it's good though for them to really know what they're signing, but I'll admit myself, like I've gone and joined a membership somewhere. And, even online, you'll join something and you have to read all this stuff, and then it says, check the box and sign, and I don't read it. Scroll check. And I don't read it, so I'm guilty of it too. But when you're taking care of the animal, they really need to be up on what they're doing, and they need to read it because it's involving an animal, and you just want to make sure things don't get, you want to make sure you're protected and that they signed it. That meant they read it, and if they don't, that's their choice. Okay. Any other questions about that on the boarding contract?
Not about that.
Okay.
I did have the lady that asked the question about the family member clarify a
Okay.
little bit. Do you want to hear the rest of that?
Uh-huh.
Okay. To clarify, it's a young adult.
Mm-hmm.
She agrees with follow the rules when younger, but as a young adult, it's hard to keep the organization, takes on a lot, overwhelms at times, and gets upset because we have different levels of tidy, and I expect boarders to be much cleaner. Can't seem to enforce it with her, but this is causing a lot of family distress. We all want peace and to work well together.
Ah, okay. I don't know unless I think in that situation, I don't know who that is, but if you want to call me sometime, maybe we can talk on the phone, because I don't know the whole dynamics of all of it. I know what I've gone through with my kids, And, sometimes it's picking up or this or that out there, especially when they were like juniors and seniors in high school. And so maybe that's what you're talking about. I'd have to talk to you about that more because it's so hard. It's kind of vague. Still don't know what the whole dynamics is. And I don't know what your barn is like. So if you want to talk to me sometime, maybe we could chat on the phone and then you can give me all the details. That would be great. And then we can talk about that. Okay. So, hi Sheri, I am enjoying this series and learning a lot. Thank you. That's awesome. I have a question about amenities and how to choose. I only have a max of 10 boarders and we don't have a covered arena. And although that would be the ultimate dream, we might only be able to afford a smaller amenity. What are your thoughts on the best choice? I like this question. And you have down lights for arena, hot walker, plumbed toilet facility. We have a well-serviced porta potty, climate control AC for tack room, porta grazers for everyone. We don't have pasture grazing. Should I ask the boarders or do you have ideas or on the best value? You sound like you're in a hot area. If you are on here, let me know if you're like in a warm state because of some of the stuff you mentioned. So, if you're going to pick, let's see, a covered arena. Yeah, and we don't have a covered arena. So let me know if you're like in a really hot area, like a hot state or something, where the temps get really warm. As far as picking what you want, I think you could open a can of worms if you start asking all your boarders. When you start asking them, you are going to have 10 different people say 10 different things on what they would like. But then when you choose one, the other ones are going to be hurt because you picked this one. So I personally would not do that myself. I would pick what you want to use. Lights for an arena. If you guys are in a really hot area where you're open late at night where it's cooler, lights are awesome. I think that's a great thing to have. A hot walker, a lot of people don't use those around here in Wisconsin, but I know out west they use them a lot. Those are always super fun, to have extra. Plum toilet facility. We have a bathroom with in our lounge, and honestly, that is a huge asset. People love it. Because especially you get a lot of women and they just use the bathroom. It's nice to have a bathroom. I think that's a huge asset. Climate controlled AC for the tack room. I don't know if you even need that. Even in the summer when we get really hot here, our tack rooms are insulated and they stay really cool, and then we just put a dehumidifier in there to keep them dry so the leather doesn't mold. Have people ask you for that, an AC? I guess personally that would not be something I would really care about doing, if it was, really hot. If it's insulated, to me, you might be able to control the temp a little bit more that way. The porta grazers for everyone. We don't have pasture grazing. I guess on those, if you're looking for something that the clients would want, if you are in a hot weather state like Arizona or someplace like that.
San Antonio.
Texas.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm assuming you're open in the evening then because of the hot temperatures. I think, if you're open in the evening, lights for the arena is always cool. People will use it if you're open in the dark and people want to ride when it's cooler. I think that's a huge asset. But it also has to be what you want. If people are okay with it, we have lots of barns around the area here that have porta potties. And they're fine with that, And the reason we wanted it, see here it gets so cold. So it's nice to have a heated bathroom because no one wants to sit on a cold toilet when it's like really cold. So we wanted a bathroom because our lounge is heated because our barn is not. But in San Antonio, Texas, the weather's a lot different. So if you can do with a porta potty, I think it's fine. I have no problem with that. I think that's a great thing. Honestly, I don't know how much people use hot walkers anymore. We don't have anybody around here that uses hot walkers. And I don't know if it's because we get so much snow and the weather. I'm not sure, but you just don't see them where you see them out west and like where you guys are more. But personally, between you and me and everyone else watching this, I wouldn't ask your boarders, because your boarders are going to come and go. And the one boarder that said, oh, please get a hot walker, please get a hot walker, you get a hot walker, and then 2 years later they leave, or a year later they leave because they're upset about something else. So you got a hot walker for someone who's not even there. I would get what you want to get and what you're leaning towards. If you think lights would be something really cool and it would be a huge asset, do it. And if you think a hot walker would be, if you think, I'm reading your list, if you think, a toilet facility is pretty expensive too. I don't know if lights would be as expensive getting the electric in and stuff. So I guess that's kind of my thought. I mean, I would get prices on all of them and then see from there. But to me, the porta grazers, I mean, you can do that definitely, but it just depends what you want. I guess we have a barn, a training barn down the road. They just put night lights in for the summertime in their outdoor arena, and they love it. They love it. They can ride till like 10 at night. So yeah, it's a good idea. I guess I would check into those and see. But you make the decision. I don't know if I'd be asking everybody. I wouldn't personally. So
She said she's leaning towards the lights.
lights. Yeah, lights are good. Okay, good for the lights. I like it. Okay. And let's see here. Okay. So I had some other questions here. If you have any questions, just keep them coming. Okay, someone asked, do we have a barn security system? And, I kind of thought, do I even answer this? Because if I give my answer, then people are going to know we don't have one. So I kind of was like, do I answer that question or not? We checked into getting a barn security system. We're in a really good location. We've never had a problem. And now I should go get one, because I'm saying we've never had a problem. But the way our barn is and on the road it is, and the neighbors right across the street, we don't have a problem with any of that. But we did look a few years ago at putting a system in, and it's still definitely something we've considered and thought about. I just haven't thought about it lately. A lot of people do them. I think they're great. And if it's going to give you peace of mind, we lock everything up in our tack rooms. Everything is locked at night. But if you definitely want a barn security system, I say do it. Yeah. And I guess there's all different kinds. We looked at some. They were kind of pricey, but I don't know why we didn't. It was a few years ago and things happened and we just never did it. But it's definitely worth checking into. Do you ever have fire drills with the local fire department? And we have not, but I do know some people that have, and the fire department came out to the barn, and the biggest thing that they were talking about was the fact that if there's a fire, the barns go up so fast that they probably wouldn't even get there in time because of the way the barns are built and the wood and the hay and all that. The other part of it is a fireman fully clothed a horse is not gonna let him put a halter on when he's fully clothed. They're gonna be so freaked out. So we had talked about it, and I thought if we were in that situation here and we could get in the barn, we would open the doors and just try to let the horses loose. Not even try to even worry about the halter, just get them out as fast as possible. I pray we never have that. But we do know of a barn that burnt down from, I think there was a thunderstorm, lightning storm, and it hit the power box. This was quite a few years ago. and it caught the barn on fire, and it was in the middle of the night, and they couldn't get the horses out. The horses died. So the fire trucks wouldn't even have been able to get there in time because it just went up so fast, with all the hay and everything in there, and everything being wood inside and so open. So, but I've heard of people, I've even seen them videos on social media of people doing it, and they look really cool. And the thing is, some of the horses probably can handle it, but most of them freak out from the firemen being all in gear. They just, they get kind of scared of that. So, great idea though. It says, do you have a staff trained in first aid? I don't. I guess we have first aid box. I'm assuming are you talking about for people or for horses? So for people, we have had to twice in 15 years call an ambulance out here. Knock on wood, not in a long time, but one person broke her leg, fell off, broke her leg, and another person had fallen off and shattered her shoulder and something else. But both were pretty hard falls, and both of them couldn't walk. And the ambulance had to come and help them out. So as far as first aid in that situation, for people, we don't have anyone. But for horses, we do have first aid kits and stuff like that. We actually have a few boarders that have their own, and then I have a barn one that has some of the stuff in case there's an emergency. But if there's something that's going on with the horse and it's such an emergency anyways, I'm going to be calling the vet right away to come out in that situation. I'm thinking that's what you mean by that, but the staff, I work full time here, and my staff that helps might know some, but I guess I wouldn't say they're trained in first aid. And it says, does it help decrease the insurance cost? Well, I have Excalibur through Heartland, Wisconsin, and they've never asked me that question they've never asked me as far as first aid. When they're asking you all the questions as far as your insurance and certain things you have to have fire exits, fire extinguishers. There's certain things you have to have in place, but that's not one of them as far as first aid. Now, maybe a different carrier would have that, but mine has never asked for that, so I can't answer that question on that. But it's definitely something to think about. And since we're talking about insurance, I want to mention something really quick, because this just kind of recently happened, and it's really important. Because if you are going to own a facility, I can't tell you how important it is if you can to find an insurance carrier that understands the equine business and industry. I had a person who was a trainer who was looking for insurance, and she was going through one company that really didn't understand the horse trainer liability, and they were trying to give her the wrong insurance for what she needed, and she didn't realize it at the time because she's learning. So then I gave her my guy who I use, and he explained that they were trying to sell her the wrong coverage for what she needed. And what it is just that there's a lot of insurance carriers out there, they don't understand the insurance part of it for running a horse business. So if you're going to have a stable or any kind of horse business, I would definitely try to find a carrier that's what they do is horse stuff, because you want to make sure you're covered right, because that's what happened with her. And then she ended up, thank goodness, calling the guy I went through, and she got her insurance and it all worked out. But she almost bought insurance that wasn't even the right kind. And it kind of happened to me years ago too, because I had a different insurance company many years ago, and it turned out I was over-covered in things that I didn't need, and then under-covered in areas that I did need. So I think it's really important to make sure you have that right. Okay. Any questions? Okay, good. Okay, so something I wanted to talk about really quick too is, I often get questions about finances, and one of the questions I had is, how do you go about getting a loan for running a horse boarding business, to build or to buy one? And the reason I thought it was a good topic is because I just refinanced our loan last week, and what people don't realize is with a business loan, they don't just give you a 30-year loan and say goodbye and you never hear from anyone again. I wish it was, but it's not. So we had a 22-year loan. It was a 22-year loan, and even though that would be when it was paid off, every 3 to 5 years, I had to still refinance with them. And that meant that every year I have to give them my taxes. They want to see a financial report. They want to, sometimes, well, actually almost every year they drive out here. They want to see what the place looks like. They want to see that you're still using it for what you say you're using it for, and that it's kept up. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And when we were first trying to get a loan for our business, this was like 17 years ago, we had been turned down by several places. I think they kind of just laughed us out the bank. I didn't even understand what they were saying. And part of it was our fault. I didn't know what a business plan was. I was way in over my head as far as, here I am asking for them to give me all this money, and I didn't know the business side of it. And after about 4 different banks, we finally found a bank that had an agricultural lender. And I don't know if he felt sorry for us or what, but he was willing to give us a chance. And so he told us to write a business plan out. And so 9 months later, I went back to him with the business plan. And, I still have that business plan, and I kind of laugh when I look at it now, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. I mean, it was just, I didn't know what I was doing, but it was really one of the best things I ever did, because it really opened my eyes to what the expenses were and what all entailed in having this business. And he was willing to fight for us to get this loan. We had to get a small business loan, SBA loan, at first. And when you do an SBA loan, there is a fee usually attached with it. And gosh, looking back, we paid a lot of money for that SBA loan. I think we paid like $12,000 to have that loan guaranteed. And your interest rate is higher. And then what happened is 2 years later, oh, thank goodness, we got out from under the SBA loan completely. And even though we had to spend that money to get the original loan, we were able to kind of fly on our own. And so that's how we've done it since. So then we now we just refinanced for 5 years, which is really nice. So we know for 5 years we have our loan. They'll still want to see everything every year, but then we have to re-sign papers at the end of 5 years. And, the interest rate, I'm hoping, will stay the same, but who knows what it could be in 5 years. Thank goodness our loan will be almost paid off. I mean, it'll be a lot, well, I'd like to say almost, but it'll be a lot lower. It'll be a lot lower, And so that part of it, that's the only kind of bummer part about it, is you don't get like a 20-year loan, 15 or 30, and you're locked in at 2.9 for that period. You don't get that. You get when you have to refinance every 3 years or 5 years, it's still on track to be paid off at the same time, but your interest rate could change. Now, our interest rate just went down, which is super cool. So I was super excited about that, because I was not sure how it was going to go with everything going on over this last year, but it actually went down a little bit, which helped a lot. So when people say, how do you get a loan? Honestly, I think things are tougher now than they used to be when we got the loan. Because after we got it, then I think it was in 2008 that everything kind of crashed in the United States. And they realized they were giving out these loans to people that couldn't afford to pay them back. for homes and everything else. So I think it's a little bit harder now. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think you have to be really smart on how you're doing it. And you have to have that business plan. I mean, you have to really be able to show that you're going to make some kind of money on it. Not that you're going to be a millionaire or anything like that, but boy, you have to really kind of pull it together. And it's really important. And I have that in this book too. I have a business plan in here. It's just so important. I break it all down to everything that, banks are going to be looking at. It's really important, and you're going to want to do a 1-year and a 3-year projection on your income. And I get you to think about a lot of stuff in here so that you can be successful in your business. So, oh, I have a hard time saying that word, successful.
You might have just answered this, but someone just asked, how do you write a business plan for a horse business? Not necessarily boarding, but in general. For example, someone looking to start a training business. Do you have a resource that may be good for reference? And yes, you do.
I do, right here. It's in here. It's somewhere in here, but it's pretty long. There are, so if you go online, there are, what would you call it, like a format. There are formats out there you can follow. But what I did is I took our business plan and then I talked to my banker about it. And I said, okay, what I did is I kind of specialized it into the horse area. So there are lots of business plans. You can Google them and they're out there, but you want to specialize in the whole horse thing. So we talk about every part of it in here. And it just kind of helps you. Now, when I was doing our business plan to begin with, I didn't understand a lot of the words. I didn't understand what they meant, what the bank wanted. So the lender I had was super nice, and I would call him up and I'd say, I don't understand what this means. The thing about it is, I'll be honest with you, it is better to be honest with the lender and say, look, I don't know what this word means. Can you walk this through with me? If you didn't go to college for it and you don't know what some of the stuff means, then just ask. I think it looks worse if you try to act like you know what all this lingo is, because the reality is, unless you went to school for business, you're not going to know what some of that is. So I would call them up and say, okay, you want, this or that. And I said, tell me how that works, because he was also not familiar too much with the horse industry. He was more familiar with dairy and beef, and so we kind of specialized it into horses. And he kind of walked me through it, and we kind of did together. And it took me like 9 months. So there's lots of plans out there, but I just kind of wrote one for horses. Does that sound? Is that what they were asking? Okay. And let's see what time it is.
7:23.
Okay. I'm just trying to think if we have one other thing about. There was something else I was going to say. When you're looking for a loan for your barn and you're going to banks, and you're talking to lenders and stuff like that, it's okay. Go to as many as you can. Talk to as many. Don't just stop at one. Go to different ones, because I have been to, we had our loan through one bank, and then the bank was sold. It went to another bank, and then that second bank didn't want to do agricultural loans. So then we went to a third bank. So go to different banks and talk to them, and it's okay to ask questions. And you got to realize, when you're doing your business plan, most of those people don't know anything about horses, so you have to explain it in a way so they understand. You're asking them to give you, a lot of money, and they're not going to give it if they don't understand what they're giving it to. It's not like a clothing store where you opened a little boutique and you're going to be selling clothes. Everybody gets that. Or you're going to have a little restaurant and you're selling food. But for horses, it's so unique that you have to really explain it to them, and you have to sell yourself. You have to tell them how you can make this work. And a lot of times they don't understand all that goes into it, all of it. And it is it's, the hay part of it, if you're making hay or buying hay, that's farming. They maybe get that, but the horse part of it, a lot of them won't understand. So you're going to have to explain that to them. And that's okay. Just spit it out and ask them questions and go to as many places as you can. That's all I can tell you. The more places you go, the more banks you go to, the more you're going to learn and be more confident when you talk to people, and it gets easier. So if you have to go to 10 banks, go to 10 banks and ask them questions, ask them what they would require. And some of them on a business plan will actually ask for different things, just like financial sheets. I just filled out ours for this bank, and I have filled one out for years, and different banks, their sheets all look different. Some of the things are the core, they'll have the same, and then some of them want extra stuff down here. They want to know that you have life insurance. They want to know how much your vehicles are worth. Some places, they ask different things. So it's okay. The more you do, I think, the more knowledge you're going to get. And also, people will ask me if I could do anything different. I think the thing I would do different if I knew better, is I would have taken some classes on business. And I did not. And I think that's why we got so messed up financially in the beginning, is because I just thought there was lots of money out there. I don't know. I just thought, I had no concept of the whole money thing many years ago. And so if you can take a class in business, it would really be good, because it'll help you understand what's going on with the banks and interest rates and a fixed rate, a variable loan. And agricultural loans are different than, they're going to be different than regular loans. And a lot of people are shocked at that. The interest rates for our loan has always been a little higher than a regular loan, which is kind of a bummer, but it just is what it is. It's a bigger risk for them than selling a house. So just something to think about. Okay, anything else?
I've got a great last question.
Okay.
Where can I purchase that book?
Oh, great. This book you can get on my website at probarnmanagement.com. It's on Amazon. If you go to probarnmanagement.com, I have 7 books there, and it's on the top, I think, and you'll see it. And you'll click on it, and it'll take you to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can get it at either one of those places. And I think you'll really like it. It's a big book. It talks about everything. I won't tell you have to do it a certain way, but I'll give you reasons to think about if you're going to do it a certain way, and these are the consequences, and this is things to look at. I want you to set up your horse business the way you want to, but I want it to be, for you, streamlined. I want the job to be easy. I don't want you to get burnt out after 2 years. I don't want you to have regrets. And I want you to make money. It is a business. It's okay to make money. You shouldn't be taking a loss every year. And I want it to be really a sound business for you. So that's why I wrote this, to help people so that they don't go through some of the things that we went through many years ago. And so, yeah, thank you. It's on Amazon, and or you can go to probarnmanagement.com. You'll find it there, too. So thank you very much. And I think we're about done.
Yep, 7:28.
Great questions, you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. And I just want to wish you the best in your horse sporting business. If I could say anything, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep trying to make it everything you want it to be. If you have to take 2 steps forward and a step back, it's okay. If you make mistakes, it's okay. Just move forward. I've made a lot of mistakes through the years and had to go in the house with my tail between my legs and say, okay, I screwed up on that. Now how do I fix it? And you just keep going forward, and you'll create the kind of business you want for you, and don't get caught up in what everybody else is doing. Do what you want to do for your business. And if you have any questions during the week, let me know, and I might pick a subject for next Monday. If you have a subject you want to talk about specifically, we can do that. And I just want to tell you, God bless you, and just remember, you can do everything. Just give it all to God and Christ Jesus. And have a blessed week, and we'll see you next Monday night. Thank you.